I want to thank our sponsors, Athletic Greens, who created AG1, one of the most innovative packets of supplements, including 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. These ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. I personally started using Athletic Greens and love the way I feel in the morning after I drink it. And I no longer have energy crashes throughout the day. And the best part is that it's delicious. The founder of Athletic Greens created AG1 because he experienced a ton of gut health and ended up on a complicated and expensive supplement routine to recover. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Yasmin. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Yasmin, YASMEEN, to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Hi, my name is Yasmin Tarehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. On today's episode, I'll be speaking with Maureen St. Germain, who has over 25 years of experience in the area of mystical and sacred traditions. She's known as the practical mystic. Maureen is just this incredible teacher and facilitator of spiritual knowledge for contemporary life. And she's an Ascension teacher and has been granted access to a dimension that has been closed to most of humanity and is a direct channel to source. I've read many of her books. I find her to be so fascinating. Her latest book, Mastering Your 5D Self, follows on the heels of the award-winning best-selling book, Waking Up in 5D and Beyond the Flower of Life. She's taught in person. I recently saw her at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles, and I'm just so excited to have her on the show. So welcome to the show, Maureen.
Thank you, Yasmin. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So to kick it off, Maureen, what does it mean to you to master our energy?
Mastering your energy is a little bit like going to the gym for your physical body. So you're learning to understand that you are greater than just your physical body that you can see in the mirror. There's actually several aspects: your emotional body, your mental body, and also your spirit body. So we have all these elements that are integrated in who we are, and you are able to impact how you use them once you understand that you have that power. Until then, you think that it's all happening naturally. As a mom, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I have to teach my child how to manage their emotions.
Mm. And so most of us are just sort of like walking through life, kind of reacting to our emotions. And what's sort of the difference between, the spiritual and the physical piece of it? Like, what does that mean to you from an emotional perspective?
Well, initially we think of ourselves as our physical body, and we think our thoughts are our mind. But in fact, we're much greater than that. So when we find a way to tap into our inner wisdom channel, then we can begin to understand more about who we are and what we're doing. The presence of the emotional body impacts how we interact with others. We often find ourselves driving an argument or a discussion or a love conversation through our emotions, but we don't think about it as a separate thing. We think it's all us. And when we learn to master our emotions or master our energy, we're learning to take command of that. So there's a simple process in the world of physical body mastering where you can teach your body to respond to your commands. You can teach your body to expand your lungs or open your heart spiritually. So it takes practice, but there's techniques. For example, if you wanted to learn how to open your heart and be more loving, you could start out your day by thinking about something that you really love. It could be a pet or an infant, or it could be a walk on the beach or the mountains. And this connection to the aspect of life that makes you really happy helps your heart open. Many people can actually feel it when they start to think about these things if they're willing to notice what's going on. And they feel a sensation in their chest. And that means that your heart energy is opening. So when you learn to master your energy, you call upon your angels and guides and other beings of light that might be helping you and ask them to help you understand your emotion and help you contain it. I remember as a young woman, I was so sensitive that I actually asked Archangel Michael to put chainmail around my emotional body, not because it was a good idea, but because I couldn't control it myself. And I would cry at, every little thing. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. That was, like me. In fact, if you don't know what chainmail is, it's the metal netting that ancient swordsmen wore to protect themselves. So it wouldn't be a good idea to do that. But I learned how to control my emotions because they were so big.
So I actually want to dig into that because that's so fascinating. I think for folks who do have a lot of emotions and a lot of sensitivities, and also a lot of sensitivities to other people's emotions and energy, how do we, what's sort of the way to master that or to work with those emotions rather than letting them take control over us and sort of dictate our lives?
Well, the first thing is to know that you're safe. I think sometimes we have big emotional bodies because we haven't felt safe in the world. Some people are born with very large emotional bodies, like I was. And so I had to understand that I was okay, and that when we discover that we're okay, even when we're not, we decide we're okay, we bring a level of calmness to our physical body, and then our psyche follows suit. It's a very complex thing, but the easiest way to do that is through meditation. And this is why I created so many guided meditations to help me initially. These were all for me, and to help me manage my energy and manage my feelings so that I could walk into a room and not be in a state of distress or anxiety or reaction. So it's so funny because every time I created a new meditation, something would happen and I would have a friend or a client call me and they'd need it. And I'd say, well, I've been using this new meditation for myself. Would you let me to try it on you? And, when the third or fourth time happens, I'd ask my angels, am I supposed to release this to the public? And of course, it would always be true. So I went through a lot of what a lot of people are going through today. I went through divorce. I went through being fired from a high-level job several times. I've had breakups and, close to bankruptcy a couple of times. So, I've been on the edge a lot. And I think that has given me strength to get to the other side. But I also created things so that I could survive and be happy.
Wow. And so I think for especially like coming out of the pandemic, I think a lot of people have faced a lot of transitions and change. And so, you talk about how that your experiences made you stronger. And, I'm curious, like for people that are going through big changes and conflict and struggles, I mean, especially right now, it feels like we're in a mental health crisis where there's a lot of people who are not able to sort of move through these really dark moments and dark periods. What would you say to them?
First thing I would say is, even if you don't believe in angels, just say to yourself, okay, I'm not sure I believe in angels, but I need help right now. And I'm asking all the angels that serve me to help me now, help me now, help me now, just like a chant. And then walk away from that, go do something else, and you'll start to feel better. You'll get a phone call, you'll get a connection with someone on your computer, and you'll start to see, oh, it does work. And that encourages you then to do more. I have a really fun guided meditation to the archangels that's very modern, and it's called The Seven Archangels and the Wheel. And I had so much fun making it because I was guided on what to say and what to put in it. And when you listen to it, you'll see why I think it's funny. There's a more traditional guided meditation for those people who are looking for biblical references and things like that. Again, I was told by my angels what to do and how to do it. And one time when I said to them, well, what if I just say that I'm in, and why do I have to keep asking you guys every single day? Why do I have to start my day this way? Or why do I have to, keep pursuing this connection? And their answer to me was, well, honey, when we got married 10 years ago, I told you I loved you. Nothing has changed. And I burst out laughing because I knew exactly what they were doing. They were making fun of me and helping me see when I had been married, there wasn't a day that went by that we didn't say I love you to each other. And if we didn't say it, we knew either I'm in trouble or you're sick, because that's just how we lived. And so then they showed me a sunrise and a sunset. And they said, every day you get a clean slate. Every day you get to choose what you will. So that's when I got the understanding that choosing, I'm on the side of the light, or I'm a good person, or I want help from any of the otherworldly beings that could help me, that are of the light. I don't want any, surprise visitors, that is a commitment to do it every day. And when we have children, we do the same thing. We tell them we love them every day. It's how we live, how we humans operate. And when we live with someone who doesn't do that, it feels uncomfortable. It doesn't feel safe. And so that's how we know.
Fascinating. So every day is a clean slate. So, you wake up and you get to choose your day. So that's an interesting concept. I mean, how much of our life is a choice and how much of it is sort of chosen for us?
Well, this is a very interesting concept. And there are a lot of people who still believe that their life is being chosen for them. But it is my belief, and it is my experience with lots and lots of people, that the minute we decide, wait a minute, I'm in charge here, I get to choose, you can start out by saying, I am asking for a day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I come in contact with. And the minute we do that, our trajectory changes, our vibe changes. And then when we meet up with someone, you could be waiting in line at the bank, and the poor teller is getting some kind of grief from the guy in front of you, and you step up and everything is milk and roses. And you think to yourself, that's cool. That's really cool. That really works. And so you begin to receive abundance of love, of good fortune, of opportunities, of convenience. I recently submitted something to someone that needed a bunch of signatures, and I discovered that at the last minute that I didn't have all the signatures, and I'd already dropped it off at the FedEx place. So I called the FedEx guy and I said, have they picked up yet? And he said, no, they don't come for a couple hours yet. I went over there and fixed it, and they resealed it for me. And my friend who heard this story said, you always have the wind at your back. Everything works for you. But I maintain that when we create an energetic discipline that says, I'm choosing to wake up in 5D, and we haven't talked about 5D yet, so it's kind of confusing for people, I'm sure. But I'm choosing to wake up in this place of yumminess. We're creating it, and it follows us around.
That's powerful. So is that what you do every morning? What's your morning routine, Maureen?
Well, I get up pretty early. I usually get up between 4 and 5 a.m.
Wow.
And I do a meditation, and then I do a Qigong routine, and then I do some kind of work that I don't need my computer, because I have my computer on a timer. And so the Wi-Fi doesn't turn on until like 6:30 in the morning, and it goes off at 9:30 because I don't want that energy on me when I'm sleeping. And then I usually make my breakfast after I have my. I also have a trainer that I work with over Zoom a couple of days a week, and so I spend an hour with her, and then I'll have a breakfast like that. But one of the first things I do, actually, when I go to bed at night, I announce I am waking up in 5D. So it's funny. I can actually feel it sometimes when I sit up and I don't feel good, or I'm tired, or there's something important that needs to happen right away. I'll just sit there and I can actually feel the positive vibe move in and take over. It's quite amazing. And then, of course, I'm reminded I'm waking up in 5D, and I put it in my morning prayers.
Well, so can we talk about that and define that term 5D? Because like for folks who don't know what 5D is, dimensional thinking, I guess is what it is, but 3D versus 5D, and maybe we could just define all these terms and
Sure.
also how the phrase, I like to have a day of heaven on earth, I want to wake up in 5D, all those things are kind of related, just so because people probably don't know what that means.
Sure. Well, and I'd really like to tell you the story behind that other one because it's so cool. So let's talk about 3D versus 5D and what 5D is. So the easy way to understand what 5D is, it's fifth dimension, and it's the vibrational data set that we can move into, and it's the equivalent of what our traditions have taught us is heaven. So it's where we have our connection to source, or each other, or God, whatever you want to call it. We're able to think clearly and be loving and supportive to one another. Things are going well, like that. And there is no judgment. There is no disappointment. And there are no acts of unkindness. The only thing that's known in 5D is kindness. And so it's kind of hard to explain, because in our world, we see everything in polarities. We see the floor is down, the ceiling is up, sugar is sweet, lemons are sour. But in reality, our goal was to create balance in that awareness and find our sweet spot in the middle of all that. So 3D is where we're filled with judgment, we're filled with remorse or anxiety, or, all those feelings of, am I worthy? Am I doing a good enough job? When I first took a job in New York City, when I first came from my roots in the Midwest to New York City for a job, I remember taking papers home where I had made a mistake, and because I didn't want anyone to find the mistakes I had made or the papers I had to throw away, because I thought I was being wasteful. And today we understand, well, that was a good agenda, but now I save paper so I can use the other side. It's kind of a different agenda. Anyway, 3D is that place of what we call polarity, where we have unhappiness about what other people are doing or what we're doing. And in 5D, we instinctively choose the most loving and supportive thing for ourselves and others. And that's the difference between the two. Now, a lot of people say, well, what happened to 4D? In 4D, it's like a portal. So it's like Grand Central Station. No one goes there to spend the night. Or an airport. You might spend the night there, but you wouldn't do it on purpose. You would do it if you felt like you needed to get to the next flight. So when we talk about 5D, we talk about this place that we aspire to, but it's not really a place, it's a vibrational data set. So think of some of those movies that you've seen where people change their vibe and then everything around them changes. Or they, the movies about time travels, like What Dreams May Come, people change their vibe and their environment changes instantly. We're in 3D, when we change our vibe, our environment changes slower. When we're in 5D, our environment changes very quickly. So when we think something, it happens right away. And over, my students are reporting back, every time I'm in this yummy state and I state that I want to do this or that, everything changes instantly. I remember a time when I had my car fixed. My kids had driven it into something, and there was a few dents, and I thought I should have this fixed. So I had it fixed. And then the couple of days later, I'm looking at the front end thinking, why didn't I have the front end done at the same time? And then I announced, I really wish I had done the front end. And the next day I hit a deer in the front and had to have the front end redone. Now, I want to tell the story, if I may, about a day of heaven on earth, because this is really cool.
Okay.
I was flying into my home city from the West Coast, and I was then going to turn around later that same day and fly to the East Coast. I had chosen that connection because I wanted to meet with certain people. It was a tight connection, but that was what I chose. And I came home that morning, and a flight service person who was also the ticket agent at my tiny town looked at me when she was loading up baggage at the as you exit the plane, and she looked up and said, "Oh, hi, Maureen, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing great, but this is my day from," and I'll just say the letter H. And she looked at me kind of funny, and I was so embarrassed. I thought, what the heck is the matter with me? Why would I say such a thing? And so then I said, but I'm flying with United, and I'm having a day of heaven on earth. Okay, I came home, and there was this flood in my house, and I had rented out a room to a roommate, and she didn't even call me to tell me that there was water running. And I'm looking around, my basement is flooded.
Oh my gosh.
And so I called my neighbor, and I called the plumber, and everything came together. The neighbor came over. The plumber came within an hour of what he said he would do. He asked me where to cut the hole in the wall to find out where the pipe was broken. And I asked my higher self. He wanted to do the upstairs bathroom, but my higher self said, no, the downstairs bathroom. And where I told him to cut was exactly where he needed to be so he could see what he was doing. All this was on one wall. You could have chosen a different wall. Anyway, I get to the bank, and I run my errands there. And I call the airline, and I say, look, I've got this big thing going on at my house. Can I please fly on the later flight? And they said, yeah, but it's going to change everything on your connections. And so I said, okay. And then I had to call my host until I was going to be late. And then when I got back from the bank, the phone's ringing, and it's a real person from the airline saying, both of your flights to the East Coast are changed. And the only way you're going to catch it is if you catch the first one, because you're going to miss all your connections if you take the second one. Can you possibly come in to the first flight, which is now leaving an hour later? And I said to myself on the way home from the bank, all I really needed was an extra hour. And here they're telling me, okay, you can get that first flight. So I said, okay, I'm 15 minutes from the airport. My bag is packed. Everything's in the car. I'll be there. I'm sitting on the plane thinking to myself, what the heck? How did I pull that off? How did that happen? And my guides came in and said, well, you said you were having a day of heaven on earth.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to declare that now then. I'm having a day of heaven on earth.
Yeah, it gets better, because then I said to myself, okay, the next day I have, a chocolate block day. I'm going to ask for a day of heaven on earth. Well, the third time I did it, it occurred to me that I could do it every day, just like you announced, and so can everyone else.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. So you make that kind of statement in the morning, and then do you notice now if you don't say it that your day is different? Yeah. Oh gosh. Wow.
When I get out of sync a little bit because of, some change in the routine or some interruption or whatever, and then I haven't done my morning, prayers where I pray for, my family and everyone in the world. And then I end it with, I'm having a day of heaven on earth. If I forget to say that, I can tell.
Wow.
I mean, if I don't get to that little thing that I do at the end of my certain practice.
Very cool. Wow. So that's such a cool story. So I think that for those listening, let's all try that. What do you have to lose? We could do some testing and see how the day shifts. I actually have used that phrase before and definitely noticed a difference. And, I remember in one of your lectures, you talked about the word magnanimous. What does that mean, and how does that relate to the kind of 5D or heaven on earth experience?
Well, it's an interesting thing because the magnanimous dimension was opened up recently by the Lords of Light who channeled what they were doing is making it possible for us to call in a most magnanimous outcome, and we would easily shift from 3 to 5D. So if something happened that would trigger us and bring us down, we could still slide right back into 5D very quickly in a way that would allow us to respond in a loving and kind way instead of, I would just say, our typical response when something happens we don't like,
So you just say, like, how can I have a magnanimous outcome?
Yes, or you can say, I'm asking for a magnanimous outcome for everything that's going on this day. That's how I do it. And it's very curious because in the old tradition, we always thought of 3D, people thought of 3D as this vibrational data set, and then we'd slide into 5D and we'd stay there. And my experience early on, my guide showed me that it was more like a sine wave. They actually reminded me of a story that one of my kids, that I had around one of my kids when I was telling my mom how awesome it was that my troublemaker son was now stepping up. And she said, well, kids don't grow up in a straight line. And I was aghast. And I said, well, what does that mean? I was pretty naive. And my mom said, well, usually when they do something mature, they follow it with something stupid, which, of course, I cracked up. And, of course, that's exactly what happened. But I learned from that applies to everything. We are all evolving and making wonderful, powerful, supportive decisions for ourselves. And then we drop back because, gosh, maybe that wasn't true. Maybe I was imagining. Maybe I was faking it, maybe they were faking it. And then we move in a little higher. So even though we fall back, the general trajectory is in a motion towards where we want to be.
Wow. So, Maureen, I think that people who are listening right now are probably super curious, like, how on earth do I raise my vibration? How can I raise my energy? Like, what are some steps? I know in your book you have a ton of different types of advice. What about just giving us like 1 or 2 pieces of advice or wisdom on how to raise our vibration so that we can attract, like beyond just stating moving into 5D or asking to be moved into 5D? Are there anything else that we can do to raise our vibration?
Well, this is maybe unfamiliar territory for some people, but when someone dies, they have a choice to go back to God, or they sometimes hang around on earth. And, sometimes we call these souls entities or ghosts, but there's a lot of energy that is hanging around, either from a big fight or from a soul hanging around that, missed the boat, missed their opportunity to return home to source. And they move into us. When we have a similar feeling, they move in because we attract it. We're like attracts like. So clearing ourselves regularly is very, very powerful. And it's easy to do. And at first it might feel strange, but think about how many times you wash your hands. And so the way you clear yourself is to take a stainless steel knife and cut around the body. I actually have a couple of YouTube videos on this called Clearing, and I show people how to do that.
Wait, Maureen, can you say that one more time? What do you do again?
One of these videos is actually me on the streets of New York with a stainless steel knife that I'd had in my bag. My students said, can you please show us this? We're begging you, please show us. And so I said, okay, if somebody will video me, I'll do it. And I literally took the knife and, scraped what would be called the aura. So maybe 5 or 6 inches above your head, cutting down in front of my face, not touching my body, but just around the body, and then bringing the knife to the floor, and then doing it on the left side of the arm, on the arms, above the arm and below the arm, and then down the left side of the body. And then the right side of the body, the same thing. And then down the back of the body as best you can reach, and the bottom of the feet. And what this does is causes anything that doesn't belong to leave. You also do a small invocation where you call in Archangel Michael to escort these entities or energies to a place of evolution or dissolution. And that will free up a lot of energy, because a lot of times we think our behavior is coming from us. And when we do this clearing work, all those recalcitrant behaviors drop off because they weren't us.
Wow. Fascinating. And how many times do you do that a day? Or does it just kind of once
Well,
every?
it depends upon the work you're doing. You can do it once a day. When people first start out doing this, they really could benefit from doing it once or twice a day, depending upon their interactions with people and what's going on. If they're out in public a lot, or if they're in a hospital, or a nursing home or someplace where there's people who have died, you're more likely to pick this stuff up. You can pick it up in the grocery store. And, it's an interesting thing when you act out of character and you kind of know you're acting out of character, or somebody calls you out and says, "What are you doing? That's so unlike you." And I even had an incident where I was with a friend and we were in the grocery store, and there was a woman in front of us who was struggling to pay for her food. And I would have just thrown down some money and said, "Here, let me cover you." But my friend stood there watching and probably getting a little frustrated. We get home and he starts saying things to me that are so out of character. I immediately looked at him and said, "What's going on with you? What's wrong?" As soon as I asked that question, "What's going on?" I knew. And that's another key. The question, "What's going on?" is very, very important. Anyway, he had picked up some energy off of that little old lady who was struggling. And he may have done her a favor, because she wouldn't know or have the ability to send this being to the light. But jumping on my friend, it certainly worked out. So when you have something happen that feels out of character, or you feel your response was out of character, or you say to yourself, "Why did I do that?" Or "Why was I so mean?" Or, those kinds of things. When you say to yourself, "What's going on?" the answer will filter in. Sometimes it doesn't filter in right away, but it will filter in. Even those of you who aren't meditating or aren't asking for a lot of outside support like I do, when you ask the question with the "what" word, you will get an answer. Because every other of the interview questions, and there's 6 of them: who, what, why, when, where, and how. We all learned this when we were in elementary school. When we ask the other questions, we're looking to find the problem so we can fix it. Who ate the cookies in the cookie jar? Why were they eaten? When were they eaten? You see? And we're all looking to find the problem so we can go fix it. When we ask the "what" question, it's completely open-ended, and we're allowing our guides, source, whatever, to tell us, and you will get an answer.
Very cool. Wow. So what's going on? What's going on? Whenever there's like because it's so interesting, because I think for those of us who are very sensitive, like I was extremely sensitive and empathetic as a child, and then when I learned how to manage my energy, I could pick up on the way people felt in rooms. I could also pick up the energy of a space, and oftentimes, it sometimes can be so overwhelming. Right. When you don't know how to interact or what to do with that. And I just, I love these exercises. I love just asking what's going on, as opposed to trying to intellectualize it, because we can't get the answer that way. And even if we do, it's not, sometimes just things don't make sense too, right? Like certain people you might have an interaction with them and it might not go well, and maybe they're just not meant to be in your life, or right. There's a lot of things that sometimes the universe is actually trying to help us and make it super easy, and we want to resist with our intellect. So it's just so funny.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And, we're such a mental society in the world. And we tend to, as you say, intellectualize everything and look for why. I have found over the years that the why question is best asked in the Akashic records. And when you're in 5D, you feel so connected to your own divinity, and you feel secure. So knowing why doesn't matter. It's like moving to the place where someone makes an insult and you smile sweetly and say thank you. And what's really funny about that is when you can do that, um, it's very confounding for the person who's issuing the insult, and they basically back up because they don't know what to do with that. And secondly, I like to joke and say, well, you can pretend you're a dumb blonde and just say thank you to everything, because that's all they know is compliments. And it's really a tease on myself. Um, but there's one other tool I'd like to share with you, if I may, and that is when you feel like something has moved in on you and you can somehow sense that something's moved in, and I don't know how else to explain it other than to say all of a sudden you feel different. There's a feeling on you that wasn't there before. You can literally harness that, like see it coalescing or condensing and then going out your feet into the earth. And I've done this many times when I picked up people's fear, not because they were trying to make me fearful, but because they were so afraid that when I touched them, they needed me to take it off of them. And so it just moved into me. And then as soon as I'm feeling like I'm going to drown, I send it into the earth. And everybody can do that. It's pretty easy. You just pretend that everything that you're feeling can slide out of your body through your feet into the earth.
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. And do you have to be standing up for that visualization, or can you kind of be sitting? What's the protocol?
Well, you could do it. You could do it when you're standing or sitting. I actually did it once when I was swimming, and this woman was terrified of the water. And I had told her husband, "Look, you've been on this trip all week, and she's been clinging to you, like glue. I will be her swimming partner, so you can have some fun with the dolphins." So as soon as she jumped in the water, I grabbed her. And I immediately had this fear that she had move into me. And I grounded it and sent it into the earth. And by the way, that's what that word means, is to ground, is to send into the earth. That just imagine that you could push something into the earth. And she looked at me and her eyes got really big and she said, "Oh my God, it's gone. I'm not afraid anymore."
So cool. Wow. Yeah, that's so, because I think, oftentimes we get hit with these strange emotions, and that the visualization of just moving that energy down into the earth is very healing. And do you replace it with anything, or you just move it out?
I just move it out. I had a client tell me that he'd been going through a rough time with a sweetheart that they had broken up. And she wanted to break up, but she wasn't done, that kind of stuff. And he woke up one morning with a fire in his belly, and he was assessing his feelings and thinking about how he was feeling and everything that happened the last couple of days. And he realized he was cool. Then he said to himself, "This is not mine," and left instantly. So that's another way to do it, just to announce, "This is not mine. What I'm feeling is not me, not mine. Go."
I love that. Okay. All right. So we got a lot of tools for folks listening on how to navigate these kind of, emotions that might not be ours, or to move it down to the center of the earth. Maureen, so I have so many more questions. This is, to me, so fascinating, and feels like we just got started. You talked about the Akashic records. Can you explain to people what they are and how we can open them? What does that mean? Let's say I want to open my own Akashic records. How would you go about doing that?
Okay, so the Akashic records are a body of knowledge. Think of it like the internet. And in the last, I'm going to say 30 or 40 years, humanity was given full access. And so prior to that, only the mystics or the shamans were able to gain access to this body of knowledge. And the body of knowledge is a recording of everything that's happened, everything that's going on right now. And it also holds possible or probable futures, which we can talk about in a minute. But the idea is that it's just a recording of everything that happened. Think of that court recorder that's taking down everything that people are saying, and then magnify that to everything. And so this record is available now as a resource to help you do a better job. Now, a lot of people use this for past life work, but I'm not so interested in the past life work, because I think it's more important to help people today and now help them get through their stuff today. So that's my focus. And what that means is that you can ask the record keepers about what is going on with your brother and why he's being so obnoxious to you, or is it my highest and best good to take this opportunity? And the record keepers are like advisors. So when the records are opened, there is a wealth of knowledge. And the why question is very suited for that environment because it helps people understand. When you understand that, there was a man that called in on a radio show, and he was complaining about his adult daughter who was not treating him well, and he felt he'd been a good dad. And the record keepers told him through me that his daughter and he were rivals in past life, and they were arch enemies. And he had gone on to a certain level of spiritual mastery, but she did not. And in this lifetime, he agreed to sponsor her to help her catch up. And she's still thinking and feeling that he's her arch enemy. And then they said to him, but she will grow out of it, but it may take a few years. And your job is to love her anyway. Because he wanted her to treat her like he wanted her to treat him like she loved him and cared for him like he did for her. And they basically said, that's not going to happen. And I can tell you as a parent, when you find out that, your child who's being obnoxious to you is going to get there, but it's not happening today, that's very helpful because it allows you to chill and hang out because it's coming. You just don't know when, but it feels better to have a feeling that there is an end date on that. Now, as far as asking how to open your records, we use a protocol, and the protocol is repeating a simple prayer 3 times. But I offer classes and trainings. I also wrote a book on opening the Akashic records. If you're good at self-study, you could use that to open your records. And basically, you implore the record keepers to give you access to this available information. And what's so amazing is that even the people who are sure they don't get anything, when they access the Akashic records, the information flows like water. And one of the things that happens is you wonder, is this for real? But then enough happens that it becomes very clear that yes, it is. So it's not a form of prediction. It is a form of resource to help you make better decisions, to improve your life, and to evolve quicker than you would without that advice.
Wow. And how long does it take to access the Akashic records?
Just a few minutes. You just, it's like learning how to play the piano or something. The more you do it, the better you get. So, repeating the prayer only takes a few minutes. And then you start out by writing out a question and letting the record keepers answer. Now, I will tell you, there are people who can access the Akashic records without doing this little ceremony. And I don't want to judge that. What I will say is, in my world, we created the lineage and the way we do it to ensure success. So we look at it more as a way to keep yourself in humility and not go into, oh, I can do this. Because you have to ask every time, is it okay if I go in?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Would you be open to doing like a live question with the Akashic records, or prefer not to do that?
I could do that. Let me just check in and see if it's appropriate. This the old ask thing.
Okay. It would be like a light question, nothing crazy.
Okay. All right. If you want to, let me give me a second here, and I'll grab my book. Okay, I'm ready. Your records are open.
Okay, great. So my question is, now that the records are open, is there a bigger creative path for me in this road of expression, communication, and storytelling? And I say this because I think, this podcast has been great. And I think I'm just curious if there's something more that I can offer creatively in the work of consciousness?
Well, we'd like to start out by telling you that your current energy is quite high. And for all souls, there is a higher road to take, no matter where they're at. So when they are ready to move up, that's when they start asking this question. And for you, there is a bigger role as a radio host for a bigger outlet, a bigger opportunity. And we ask you to make a clear intention that you're ready for that. And then ask the universe to create the opening, the opportunities, and you will show up and do your part. Part of what holds you back is the subconscious wondering, am I good enough? Am I doing the job I need to do? Can I do it better? And at the other hand, when you start to feel a little bored with it, or a little bit of what we will call slowdown with it, that's when you recognize, okay, time to level up. Let's see if there's anything else. You are a light in the world. You are a lighthouse to many. And this will continue to grow. And as we say, make the clear intention you're ready for the next opportunity, and it will present itself.
Beautiful. And is there anything in like writing or storytelling? Because I think that's also, it feels like there's been a big gift in that, like with film writing and audio journalism. And I'm just curious if there's anything there.
We want you to pick a well-known radio journalist or TV journalist that you admire who has done well, and find that niche that they are in that you aspire to, and focus on that. Put all of your attention on that. Writing a book is perhaps something that will evolve as you tell your story. And if you are not keeping a journal, you need to. And that will write the book for you. But your niche is definitely where you're at and is growing.
Okay. Wow. Is there anything else that I need to know, or I guess what's the most important thing for me to do next?
Most important thing for you to do is to take your higher self connection from trust to knowing, so that you can rely on it without hesitation.
Okay, awesome.
And Maureen can tell you that after your records are closed.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else I should ask at this point, or is this does this feel complete?
You are part of what we call the way showers, who are showing the way for others. You yourself are on your own spiritual journey, but you're enough ahead of the crowd, so to speak, that you can map out opportunities and ideas for others to follow. In this way, you are like Lewis and Clark, who mapped out the great Western territories of the United States in order for that to be colonized and settled. So you get to be on the front lines, and there's more to that than just what was said. What's implied here is what's important.
Very cool. Wow.
All right, let's close the records.
Okay.
We give thanks to the record keepers, and your records are now closed. And what I'd like to offer to those who are listening is that we did stop the recording so that I could open the records and be ready to answer some of Yasmin's questions. And that was a little bit of a ceremony, which we did behind the scenes, so to speak. So, I answer a lot of questions on the radio, but because I didn't have any awareness that we were going to do this, I had not taken those steps that I normally would do.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, because I know we didn't talk about it. I was just curious, what it would be like. And that was very moving. So thank you so much for doing that. Wow.
The nice thing about working with record keepers is they're very loving and very supportive. So even if you've been even if you, and I'm talking to the audience now, have been beating yourself up about something, the record keepers will take a different slant and they will help you see and understand your behavior so you can choose to be different. And that's really very powerful.
I love the choice that we have in like stepping into this kind of new evolution of self too. It's like, we have to just be it in order to attract it.
Mm-hmm.
And you spoke about like learning to trust our higher self.
Oh, yes. So I developed with my guides a way to connect with your higher self that will give you 100% accuracy. And there isn't a teacher anywhere that will say that to you. And my protocol is very analytical. So those of you who are analysts and wanting to follow this along, it's a very easy 3-step process. And you start out with a little meditation where you ask for symbols or signals for yes, no, and neutral. And that you can do on your own. And then we do 3 simple rules for 45 days. So the rule number 1 is you ask only yes or no questions, no open-ended questions, no predictive questions, and they're always insignificant choices that you are willing to do either way. So if you're sitting in a restaurant and you're thinking about one meal or another and you can't decide, so you ask your higher self. And once you ask, then you must follow through. So I always encourage people, do your legwork first and then ask your higher self, because that's your final decision. So that's the second step, follow through. If you ask, you must follow through. And then the third step is you set aside all your other divination tools. You set aside a pendulum if you know how to use one, or muscle testing if you know what that is, or kinesiology. All of those things are accurate to a point. The reason I say that there's a difference between trusting your higher self and knowing you trust that I would show up for this interview, but you know the sun is going to come up tomorrow. And that's the difference. You're certain about the sunrise. You trust. And trust implies that there's a possibility of a no-show. Trust implies there's a possibility of disappointment. But knowing doesn't do that. So when I say to you, do you trust that 2 + 2 is 4, or do you know that 2 + 2 is 4? So you can see easily there's a difference, that there is a complete difference. There's no question in your mind about whether 2 + 2 is 4. You know it. And that's what happens with your connection to the higher self. So going back to the basics, 45 days of unimportant, insignificant questions. And the best part is I tell people, start with today and count forward 45 days. So no matter what day this is, if it's the 1st of the month or the 10th of the month, you just move forward 45 days. So if you start on the 1st of the month, then it's 1 month plus 15 days. That's easy to do. And then you decide that right off the bat, I'm going to do this practice for 45 days and it's going to end on this date. And then you proceed to ask unimportant, insignificant questions every single day, up to 30 or 40 times a day. What that does is builds familiarity. It also builds history. Most of us make decisions based on our history. We look up what's on the internet when we're buying a car. We ask our friends about that brand. And we go through all this resource, which is history. But higher self is in real time. Higher self is going to give you accurate information for the now. And so after you go through all those steps, when you ask your higher self, it's always right. And so the fun part is, even when you feel like that signal isn't that clear, or I'm not really certain about it, you allow that to be okay, because you're playing. It doesn't matter. You're asking about unimportant stuff, so it makes no difference. And then in hindsight, you begin to see, you ask which restaurant to go to, and your higher self says this one. And then you walk in and your best friend is there, and you think, oh, that's so cool. I've been thinking about you all week. So there's cool things that'll happen as a result of asking your higher self. And you always ask the same way. Higher self, is it in my highest and best good to take this action? Again, don't talk about the future. Don't ask about what other people are doing. Simply my action steps this day at this moment.
That's so interesting. Okay. And why 45 days?
We get new DNA after 45 days and the body recalibrates. So it becomes second nature.
Fascinating. Okay. All right. I'm going to try that.
Oh, it's wonderful. I'll send you the handwritten text on that so you can really, level up.
And it's just small decisions because I usually, it's so funny. I feel like I'm pretty intuitive, but for some reason, I don't always follow my intuition. I mean, it's comes and goes, and there's reasons for that. But
Yeah, and to be fair, that's what everybody does. Everybody who feels like they have a little bit of intuition or a big amount of intuition, they follow it most of the time. And that's my test question. When people say, "Oh, I don't need that. I already have a good connection," I always ask, "So, do you always follow your higher self?" And of course, the answer is always no.
no.
You know, and my response to that is then you don't believe in it. You don't know that it's your higher self, because once you do this exercise, there's no question. It's like in the old days when people didn't have caller ID, you could pick up the phone before you said hello and know who it was. Many people did this.
Yeah.
So it's possible to learn this skill. And oh, by the way, as you were saying you were going to do it, I thought, oh yeah, the record keepers just told you to do it.
Yes, yeah, and to journal every day, which I used to journal every single day, and then I sort of stopped doing that. But it was profound when I did it, journal every day, and I mean, I have so many great insights in the morning. It's just like powerful.
Maybe you could journal at a meal and write about your interview. And not a lot about the interview, but just how you felt about the interview or what you learned from the interview that struck.
Yeah, absolutely. And to share, because I feel like there's so much wisdom in these conversations, and this will be the 101 episode. So
That's fabulous. Well, congratulations on a wide-ranging audience and a very amazing start to an amazing career.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny. My mom used to tell me when I was younger, you should be in audio journalism. And it took me like many decades before, I actually stumbled into this. So very, very fascinating. Maureen, I have so many more questions, but I know that we're at time. If you have a little bit more time, I'd love to ask a couple more questions.
Sure thing.
Okay. So, I'd love to know what your journey was like. Was there like a catalyst, like a person or event that placed you on this path? Your name is Maureen St. Germain. I think for people who may or have not heard of the Ascended Masters, I think it would be a good idea just to explain who they are and also how you got your name.
Okay, so I think I've always been on this path. From the time I was a child, I knew what my interactions would be to help people. I didn't really have a sense of what my true purpose was as a child, but I knew I wanted to help others. And I also knew that I was being watched by beings of light and not so good ones. And I didn't have a strong imagination from television because we didn't watch television. We were a farm family. And so I grew up knowing about the angels and the saints because I grew up Catholic. And when my first marriage ended after 25 years, let me back up. When I was 11, I couldn't figure out what to use as a confirmation name. And finally, I found the name of St. Germain, and that's what I selected. So my confirmation name is Germain as well. And then as an adult, when I was going through this process of my divorce, my attorney kept saying, well, do you want to go back to your maiden name? And I would say, I don't know. Let me think about it. So I called him one day after I'd received this message. And the message was to do the numerology on Maureen St. Germain. And I had been doing a numerology chart for someone. And when I finished, that's when I got this message. So I did the numerology, and it was very powerful, very high. And I just sat there with it. I'm thinking, I'm not changing my name. That's what weird people do. I'm not doing it. I was in the corporate world at this point. And finally I asked, so am I supposed to change my name to Maureen St. Germain? And the answer was yes. And I called my attorney, and I'm just, exploring what's possible. And I said, what if I pulled the name out of a hat? And he said, well, it's a good thing you called me today because we're filing the paperwork tomorrow and it would have been too late. And I was thinking, I was just checking my options. I didn't think I was calling him to tell him to do it. So I had to make a decision right then and there. And then later, this is a funny add-on, a postscript, if you will. One man who was a very good friend of mine, and we had such a nice connection, he asked a very well-known psychic, what's his connection with Maureen St. Germain? This is a gay man who was with his partner, and I was, the guest in their home on a regular basis as a teacher. And the well-known psychic said, well, you were a ship captain, and you had a ship that crossed the Mediterranean for the Ascended Master St. Germain when he was alive. And just in case you're not following this story, an Ascended Master is a human who has been on the earth many lifetimes and achieved a level of mastery so that they can now be of service from the other side. So this man, known as the Comte de Saint-Germain, was a living human being at one time. Anyway, supposedly I was his beloved. And so my joke is he didn't give me his name in that lifetime, but he made sure I got it in this one.
Oh, love that. Amazing. That's so beautiful. And so, and now you're teaching a lot of the works from the Ascended Masters in your books and your courses. And so for those who are not familiar, I mean, I wasn't familiar with the Ascended Masters until a couple of years ago. And I think, there's a lot of camps of people that really know about them, and then a lot of people who don't, especially if their background was maybe not Christian or Catholic. So, so Maureen, what sort of things have surprised you on this journey? You've been on this journey for so long now. Is there anything that surprises you?
Yes, occasionally when I'm in the Akashic Records, I am completely surprised by what they say. And since it's coming out of my mouth and I'm not thinking it, it's just, like a channel opened up and they're speaking through me. I'm fully conscious, fully cognizant. I stand back in awe. And on the other side of it, when I'm teaching and a student says, I can't believe I actually wrote that. And of course, my joke is, yeah, you didn't. That was the Akashic Record keepers. And we all laugh, but it's true. So the messages that are coming through for us are quite profound and quite amazing, and sometimes boggle the mind. Just boggle the mind, And so one of the things that I think is really important is to suspend disbelief. And if you like the movies, be okay with a lot of the movies that don't make sense, but seem to have their own common thread, like the movie Frequency or the movie Ghost or Sixth Sense. Those movies challenge us to think of being a human that has a different experience than what we thought. And they're very entertaining, but they're also seeding in us awareness that these things might be possible. And that's what I like about the movies.
I loved the movie Ghost when I was younger. Oh my gosh, I loved, and we actually had Laura Day on the show who actually consulted with Demi Moore on in intuition and that kind of stuff inside the psychic world. So
very nice, very nice.
Yeah, so cool. So are there any other mentors or books or resources, obviously outside of your own, that you recommend our audience to read or check out, or maybe even someone that greatly influenced your life? Is there anyone?
Well, if you're curious about the Ascended Masters, I would highly recommend a resource book called The Ascended Masters and Their Retreats by Elizabeth Clare Prophet. It's a profound book and quite wonderful. It's a dictionary of the Ascended Masters and their lifetimes and who they were in various embodiments And that's very helpful, because then when somebody says something, or in meditation you get a name, you can look it up. So that's one resource. Another resource that I really love is a book called Love is in the Earth. And it also is a dictionary of all the crystals. And I like that particularly because the woman who brought that information forth, Melody, was a brilliant human being and had so many wonderful things to teach us about the crystals and what they do for us. Let's see if there's, and the other thing is, start out your day with, I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I come in contact with and everyone I'm in contract with. And I use that last part, the contract bit, because I might not see my webmaster today, but I want to make sure she has a good day because I need her to have a good day.
I love that. Yes. In contract with, I love that. Oh, amazing. Well, Maureen, are there any other resources that you can point folks to in order to learn more about you and your book? Where can people find your meditations? I know you referenced them in the beginning.
Yes. I have a website called St. Germain Mystery School, and you can read the blog, which is loaded with information. 90% of my information comes directly from source. And a lot of times I get told something and then I discover later someone else had said that too. But a lot of times I'm the first one to say it. And I'm not trying to, make myself special, but just to say that I feel validated when somebody else writes something that I was given by my guide. So, it works for all of us to, be aware of what other people are doing. The works of Dolores Cannon jump out at me. And her work was hip through hypnosis, and it's profound. She's no longer living. And also the work of Neil Donald Walsh. I remember when I read Conversations with God, I thought I could have written this because it was all the stuff I knew, but I had never written it like that. And then one of the delightful things, if those of you who are listening don't read books, then get the audio version with Ed Asner and Ellen Burstyn. Those two people, those two famous actors, play God, and they switch mid-sentence. For me, that was hilarious to hear a male voice, the booming father image and Ed Asner, and then a woman picks up the rest of his sentence. It's hilarious, or vice versa. and the content in those books is remarkable and phenomenal, and will expand your consciousness beyond anything you ever thought of. So Conversations with God, books 1, 2, and 3. And then, of course, there's a series after that. And then all the Dolores Cannon books, which were all channeled, where she supposedly was talking to Nostradamus.
Yes, we had Neil on the show about a year ago, and it was phenomenal. I loved Conversations with God. It was a really excellent book. And Dolores Cannon I've been diving into, but I wish I could have met her before she passed. Thank you so much, Maureen. This is so fascinating. I know we didn't get to some other questions, so maybe we could do a part 2 at some point later and get into things like the flower of life and the Merkaba and tetrahedron and all this other stuff. So, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and to help so many people.
You're welcome. And I wish you good fortune and a day of heaven on earth.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I wish all of our guests and the audience listening in for a day of heaven on earth. Thanks for joining in, for listening. In this episode, we learned about mastering our energy, how to access higher consciousness. And you can tune in to Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again.